Hayırlı kеш hanımlar ve mırzalar. Good morning, dear ladies and gentlemen. My name is Taskyn Koshman. I'm the Regional Director of CERBA and KCBC Coordinator. And I'm very thrilled to note that we're almost at the final of KCBC Marathon. And I'm happy to welcome you at the Canada-Kazakhstan Business Council Working Group Chairs Reports Plenary Session Day 1. Today is one of the most important events to learn on working groups' findings and opportunities for further business relationship between Canada and Kazakhstan. And before we go to the official part, just to remind a couple of technical updates. First of all, you have a chance to listen and to watch the plenary session. There is also simultaneous translation. If you go to the right bottom of your computers or devices, so you will see the link which says more, and just push it and you will find language interpretation. So we have English and Russian languages to listen. Also, you will have a chance to ask your questions. We have Q&A chat here, so please write down, and we will have a Q&A session to get your answers. So another important thing to mention that all events, KCBC events, are recorded, and shortly you will have a chance to rewatch or watch it again on CERBA YouTube channel. Also, taking this opportunity, I would like to say a couple of words about organizer of all KCBC events, CERBA. It's Canada Eurasia Russia Business Association, which has 9 offices and supports to develop trade and business relationship and serve to its members. And we're happy to invite you to become one of them and to get this opportunity. And please approach me or my colleagues in terms of that. So there will be a final KCBC 4th meeting report also published in the nearest future after both sides, governments and co-chairs from both sides are approved and agreed. So also today's plenary session will be moderated by my boss, Mr. Gilles Breton, the chairman of the Canada Eurasia Russia Business Association. And now I'm happy to introduce you and to welcome my direct boss, Mr. Norman Storm, CERBA Kazakhstan chairman and Condor Petroleum managing director. Condor Petroleum, by the way, the 2nd largest Canadian investor in Kazakhstan. So Norman, please.
Thank you, Taskyn. Hello, everybody. Many thanks and welcome to all of you who are attending or participating in today's event, the KCBC Plenary Session Working Group Chair Reports. My name is Taskyn, it said, is Norman Storm. I'm the chairman of the Kazakhstan chapter of CERBA and the Canadian Eurasia Russia Business Association. For those of you who are not familiar with CERBA, I would like to provide a brief overview. CERBA was founded in 2004 with the mandate to enhance bilateral trade and investment between Canada and Eurasia. CERBA is an independent, non-profit, membership-based association that represents over 140 corporate members in its network of 9 chapters, as Taskyn had mentioned. Those chapters are in Almaty, Moscow, Tashkent, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, Alberta, Winnipeg, and Vancouver. CERBA supports the business development initiatives of its members through the organization of conferences and seminars, B2B meetings, trade missions, and market intelligence. CERBA, on the part of Canada, was also one of the co-founders of the Kazakhstan-Canada Business Council, or KCBC as we refer to it, together with the Kazakhstan International Chamber of Commerce from the Kazakh side. The council is co-chaired by the chief executives of national company Kazatomprom and Chemical Corporation, Messrs. Primatov and Tim Gitzel. KCBC is widely recognized as one of the preeminent forums to promote bilateral cooperation, trade, and investment between Kazakh and Canadian organizations and companies. In addition to my role at CERBA, I'm also the General Director of Falcon Oil and Gas and the Managing Director of Condor Petroleum. Our companies have been active in Kazakhstan's energy sector since 2006 and Condor is one of Kazakhstan's largest Canadian investors with overall investments in the Kazakh economy totaling more than $250 million. Condor has also spent more than $1.5 million on training and education of its Kazakh personnel, both in international education institutions as well as locally in Kazakhstan. A further $5 million was donated by Condor to fund Kazakh social programs and organizations as well as for sponsorships. I would like to take the time to thank all of the dignitaries as well as keynote speakers and panelists who generously contributed their valuable time to make the 5 working groups such a success. And of course, all of you in the audience who took part in the 5 working groups. Today, we'll report on those groups, those 5 groups, and their transportation and aerospace, energy and natural resources, construction and infrastructure, healthcare and education, and agriculture and AgTech. I would especially like to thank the representatives of the governments of Kazakhstan, Canada, and the provinces of Alberta, British Columbia, Ontario, Quebec, and Saskatchewan who took part in the various working groups and provided valuable insights on new legislation, procedures, and incentives in their respective jurisdictions for the various business sectors covered during the working groups. KCBC had more than 500 registered participants for these groups, which were held between the 12th and 23rd of November. This year was actually the first time that we had a virtual event, and in spite of the challenges caused by the different time zones, we received a lot of positive feedback from those who took part, and I think it's safe to say that all the hard work that everybody put in to make this happen was a good success. COVID-19 has had a major effect on all the world's economies, and Kazakhstan and Canada are no exceptions. Strong trading relationships and cross-border business partnerships and joint ventures provide optionality and flexibility to companies and countries and are extremely valuable, especially during an economic downturn. Geographical diversification not only leads to an expanded palette of opportunities for companies, whether it be via broader sales networks or via actual long-term investments in plant and equipment, but also serves to lessen the dependency on local markets. It is important for both Canada and Kazakhstan to continue to try and expand and intensify their business and cultural relationships, but this can only be accomplished by a concerted effort on the part of both sides. Therefore, I encourage everyone to keep moving forward, since the obvious synergies between the economies of Canada and Kazakhstan and the fabric of the countries themselves will ultimately lead to breakthroughs on the trade and investment fronts. We believe that CERBA and KCBC, in conjunction with the embassies of Kazakhstan and Canada, will play a vital role in helping to continue to promote bilateral trade and investment, as well as business networking opportunities for Canadian and Kazakh companies. I would like to thank Ambassadors Kamaldinov and Brousseau for their ongoing support of KCBC and CERBA throughout the year and their valuable contributions to help with the organization of this event. For those of you who weren't able to attend the working groups, I hope that today's plenary session will provide you with a good overview of what was discussed. The work of the 5 working groups will not end at the conclusion of the plenary session, and we will hear more about this during the co-chair wrap-ups of their working groups later on today. CERBA plans to hold follow-up meetings throughout 2021 in order to maintain the momentum that was gained over the past several weeks. Emails will be sent out to participants of the working groups advising them of these upcoming events. Please feel free to contact the CERBA regional directors or make use of the links and contact details that have been provided for further follow-up after the event. CERBA serves as the Council Secretariat and welcomes any private sector companies who wish to join its ranks and strengthen the bilateral cooperation. A summary of the presentations given by the speakers during each of the 5 working groups will be published and made available to the public on the CERBA website after the plenary session, which will be held tomorrow, the 26th of December, at 8 p.m. Nur-Sultan time and 9 a.m. Toronto time. And in closing, very importantly, I would once again like to give special thanks to the co-chairs of the fourth session of the KCBC, Kazatomprom Chemical Corporation, for their generous sponsorship of this year's event. Without their financial support, this event would not have been possible. I would now like to invite Gilles Breton, the National Chair of CERBA and the moderator of today's plenary session, to introduce the dignitaries as well as the keynote speaker and co-chairs who will provide summaries of the main topics covered during their working groups. Thank you. Gilles?
Thank you very much, Norman. Pleasure to be here with you this morning. So without further ado, I think because of the time constraints that we have, I will introduce now the next speaker, His Excellency Nicolas Brousseau. I would say a young man, but a longtime friend of personal friend, but also a friend of KCBC. So Nicolas, over to you.
Thank you very much, Gilles, and it's a real pleasure to see you. Of course, like all of you, I would have preferred to see you in person, and very happy to see many familiar faces, including, of course, my good friend Ambassador Kamaldinov, that I haven't seen for a while, and Mr. Gilles, of course, and Mr. Day. You might remember, Mr. Day, that we met when you did your visit to Moscow in 2009. I was posted at the embassy as press secretary with Gilles Breton, in fact. So it goes down a long way. Without further ado, I will just take a few minutes to talk about KCBC. It's a distinct pleasure to welcome you to the plenary session for the working group's chair reports of the fourth Kazakhstan-Canada Business Council meeting. And I want to reiterate our strong support for the KCBC, the exemplary work of the co-chairs, Kazatomprom and Cameco, and especially thank the Canada-Eurasia Russia Business Association, particularly Gilles Breton, Norm, Taskyn, for organizing this event, and particularly in those difficult circumstances. I would also like to thank all the participants who woke up early in Canada, although it's not so early, I think, or are working late in Kazakhstan, for joining us today. The KCBC sessions offer us the opportunity to showcase the excellent relationship that Kazakhstan and Canada have and are continuing to develop. More importantly, they are also about expanding our current business links and building new opportunities. Trade and investment is about making people's life better and more stable. And this is the goal of international commerce and the root of Canada's international trade policy. To achieve this, trade must be inclusive and diverse. I have come to experience firsthand in my time in Kazakhstan that these are common goals for our two countries. There is genuine interest in making the most out of bilateral economic potential, and inclusive trade plays a key role in our diversification efforts. We are, as you all know, ideal partner for each other. It is people-to-people connections, even virtual, that make international commerce work. These personal connections are at the very core of our bilateral relationship, whether built by senior business and government leaders meeting virtually or during state visits, as happened with the historic Governor General visit to Kazakhstan 2 years ago. The KCBC is the premier vehicle for us to make these deep, personal, and mutually beneficial ties. Prior to the global pandemic, our economic links were growing steadily. In 2019, Canadian foreign direct investment in Kazakhstan was $3.24 billion, and bilateral merchandise trade was $614 million, a solid growth over the previous year's numbers. COVID-19, first and foremost, has been a health crisis, as you all know, but it also has a profound shock on the global economy and the international trade. Joint efforts between Canada and Kazakhstan to rebuild and recover together are crucial. Luckily, the business connections between our two countries are built not only on similar economies, but even more so on common drive to move our industries into the future. As we battle the global pandemic, seeking to preserve both the health and the wealth of our countries, this push to innovate and to encourage open and inclusive trade is more important than ever. As we can see today, technology, while not a perfect substitute to face-to-face meetings, increasingly offers ways to bridge our geographic divide. The working group sessions that we will hear about soon have been focused on sectors that will benefit from this forward-looking focus. Innovative solutions in ICT and clean tech apply in all of the important sectors that the KCBC has covered. Agriculture and agri-tech, energy and natural resources, construction and infrastructure, aerospace transportation, and of course, healthcare and education. I'm delighted that the working groups have had such impressive participants from business, government, and academic community. Chairpersons and keynote speakers have included vice ministers, assistant deputy ministers, business leaders, and sector experts. I'd like to thank them all. Your commitment to bolstering Canada and Kazakhstan relationship is appreciated and bodes well for our future. I know that the working groups have uncovered additional commercial opportunities we can explore, and I look forward to hearing the chair's roadmaps and recommendations to further strengthen our commercial ties. And finally, I also welcome you to join tomorrow's plenary session, when you will hear from Minister Mirzagaliev, Minister Omarov, the Prime Minister's Special Representative for the Prairies, Jim Carr, Parliamentary Secretary Rachel Bendayan, Ambassador Kamaldinov, and other senior speakers. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicolas, for these kind words. You know, as always, a pleasure to hear you. Of course, we'd like to have a drink together after this, but we'll have to postpone that. Now, it's my pleasure to pass over the floor to Ambassador Akylbek Kamaldinov, who will say a few words today, but who will also speak at tomorrow's plenary. His Excellency, Ambassador Kamaldinov, please, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Breton. Hi, glad to see you, everyone, dear friends. Mr. Gilles, Nicolas, hi, how are you doing? I am without speeches and performance today. I listened to them, okay? I need more information about work that was done. Okay, and anyway, I'm very good to see you everyone today, and I would like to say a special thanks of CERBA team. Great job, great job. I'm really excited. Thank you, Mr. Breton.
Whoopsie. Thank you, Ambassador Kamaldinov. Of course, it was your idea, your initiative to have us do this KCBC this year. So at the outset, we were not so sure, but I think we're delighted that you had to take this initiative. So thank you very much again, and we'll look forward to hearing you tomorrow. Now, I turn this back to Norman Storm, who will, and his colleague Gendos Temirgali, and maybe Orvera and in Toronto, Katerina, who want to say something. Our first working group will be energy and natural resources. So over to you, Norman and Gendos, as you like it.
Thank you, Gilles, much appreciated. And I guess the order has been changed a little bit, so we're going to start off with our working group. I think Gendos I'll start and Gendos will follow. We'll share the duties today. But I just wanted to open by saying that we had a very good representation on the part of the dignitaries. We had Mr. Brekashev, the Vice Minister of Ecology, Geology, and Natural Resources, giving welcoming remarks, and Ruslan Baimashev, the Vice Minister of Industry, Infrastructure, and Development of the Republic of Kazakhstan, along with Balad Ashvalakov, the Director of KazEnergy, and Arman Kashkembekov, the Head of Sustainable Development from the UN Development Program, and Mr. Kutsi, the Area Director for Central Asia, for representing the Government of Ontario. Just to, I guess the key thing with doing a wrap-up of working groups is to talk about potential opportunities and the path forward. So I just wanted to start on the energy side. We had very good discussions, and it was sad that we were limited by a two-hour timeline. But I think as we'll talk about later, we see lots of opportunity to further these discussions later on. as far as the energy working groups, we learned some interesting information, of course. Kazakhstan's got a very aggressive strategic target to expand its renewable energy sector. And you can see on the screen, right now we're currently sitting about 3% as renewable energy making up the market. And by 2025, that's going to be pushed up to 6%, and then very aggressively to 10% by 2030 and 50% by 2050. And these aren't just numbers, but they're actually backed by legislation. And this is the very exciting aspect of it. Financial and Settlement Claims Center for the purchase and sale of this electricity. They have the standard PPA contract forms for 15 years. It's actually been recently adjusted to 20 years. And connection into the grid and free transmission of the power that comes from the renewable energy, and of course, investor protection and preferences, which is very important. And also critical, I think, when you're looking at the fear of potential devaluations and inflation, they're actually indexed, the tariffs are actually indexed to these, covering these two important aspects. On the side of Canada, Canada's also made great strides over the last 15 years to develop cleaner energy alternatives. And we had a presentation from the Ontario government, and it was quite interesting to see that Ontario has totally gone away from coal power generation. And now basically there you can see the breakdown of the energy sector with nuclear 34, gas 29, hydro 23, wind 12, solar 1, and biofuels just a little less than 1%. So Ontario's the effect of just doing away with all the coal power generation was the equivalent to taking 7 million cars off the road. So that's obviously a huge improvement and leads to much cleaner air and emissions. Vera, could you go to the next slide? The other thing that we had in our working group, we talked about small-scale LNG implementation. Kazakhstan, this is something that I think could be very, very useful for Kazakhstan's market. This technology is available in Canada and in North America in general, and it's a very good add-on. Creates a lot of value added to the natural gas sector. It allows for monetization of small stranded gas fields in Kazakhstan. The powerful thing about this technology is you don't need pipelines, you don't need electricity connections. If you have a field that's in an isolated area, to date these fields basically haven't been developed, they've just been parked. So if the field has the right size, this is something that could be adapted through the use of this small-scale LNG. And of course, it's good for the environment and emissions, reduces a reliance on diesel, and is now being really used aggressively in Canada in the mining sector, especially for large open pit mining operations. So this is something that we need to follow up with. And we've already had Sam Rook in London office has already been in touch with us and asking for more information. So another thing that was discussed was power plant upgrades and retrofitting. Kazakhstan mentioned that the power plants that exist in Kazakhstan, some of them are obviously new, but others are getting on in years, and this is an opportunity to upgrade these plants. And Canada, of course, has this technology and has significant presence in North America as far as power generation and basically the distribution. Another thing that was discussed is the clean tech, obviously, research and development. Ontario is a leading center for this. More than 5,000 companies located in Ontario offering various services in this sector, and there was great interest on the part of the Ontario government to take this more globally and to collaborate with other regions and other countries And I think this is something that we'll follow up with for Kazakhstan as well. And any of these new technologies that are available would certainly be something that would be interesting for utilities usage in Kazakhstan. So that was basically the sort of a very brief overview of the energy sector. And Jandos, I'll turn it over to you for a little bit of a wrap up on the natural resource side.
Thank you very much, Mr. Storm. Indeed, as you've mentioned, this working group was a breathtaking success, and it was marked by the attendance of the high officials, of the leaders of the corporate sector, and we are sure that it will be will have very good and very meaningful implications. Let me just mark our moderators, Mr. Kanat Skakov and Ruslan Zhenkov, who were very professional in moderating it and with high competence in these respective sectors. And for mining and natural resources part, Kazakhstan is the country's second economy, mining and metallurgic industry sector after oil and gas industry. We're concentrated 23% of the industrial production and 21% of the national export. The key factors of investment attractiveness of this industry is firstly, Kazakhstan ranks the 6th in the world in terms of natural resource reserves. It was highlighted by the Vice Minister of Energy and Natural Resources, 10th in terms of total mineral exploration, and the gross value of proven reserves of major minerals in Kazakhstan is more than 3 trillion, and their recoverable value is more than 2 trillion. There are more than 99 chemical elements have been identified in the subsoil of Kazakhstan, and 70 have been explored and 60 are being extracted. In 2018, the new mining code of Kazakhstan on subsoil and subsoil use was adopted, which fully corresponds to the best world's practice, the West Australian model, and the practice of Canada as well. And ferrous and non-ferrous metallurgy are identified as priority sectors of the economy and given the government support measures in the form of investment and tax preferences. And one of the participants, Tauken Samruk, and Kaz Geology, they were highlighting the availability of projects for the government investment. And in particular, Kazakh Invest in mining industry is ready to offer more than 40 projects in various subsectors. Today, the mining and metallurgical sector is focused on growth of priority projects, including all the surrounding conditions. Therefore, we offer comfortable conditions for production with the provision of combined package of state support measures for exploration, extraction, and production of goods. That is pretty much it. And I would like to, could you please switch to this second slide? As the next steps, we have identified as the results of the working group, the delegates expressed their intention to intensify the efforts to broaden and deepen cooperation on bilateral trade and investment in the energy and natural resource sectors. And these sectors are essential for both countries. And in partnership with, of course, on the platform of KCBC, in partnership with Kazakh Invest, Tauken Samruk, Kazenergy, and other companies, we will continue the dialogue, and we have agreed that this very useful platform will sustain and provide full-time dialogue between the government and the company to company, B2G and B2B, and this will become like a secretariat for further interaction in this sector between the two countries. Thank you, Norman. I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Gilles, and we appreciate, of course, all the support we got from your organization, Kazakh Invest, and the other government agencies. And I think we've said enough. We'll give somebody else a chance to talk now, and we'll turn it over to you, Gilles, for introduction to the next working group.
Thank you very much, Norman. Thank you very much, Gilles, for your report. I think we have not, there'll be the opportunity for questions at the end of the presentations and after the EDC presentation. So for now, we'll keep rolling on the working group reports. And our second working group report today will be construction infrastructure. So I'll pass the word over to Tatiana in Vancouver to say a few words of introduction to our working group. Tatiana, over to you.
Yeah, good morning. I'm just trying to switch the presentation. Okay. All right. So good morning, Canada. Good afternoon, Kazakhstan. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I just wanted to say from myself as the coordinator of the working group on the construction and infrastructure, that it was a great pleasure to work with a team of top-level professionals, government professionals, and business professionals. And I think we were very fruitfully in discussions and working out some incredible opportunities in construction and infrastructure sector. So I would like now to introduce two of our co-chairs. On Canadian side, our co-chair of the working group is Honorable Stockwell Day, the former Minister of International Trade of Canada. And on the Kazakhstan side, the co-chair is Mr. Galimjan Matayev. He is a representative of Kazakh Invest in the US and Canada, and is currently in Washington, DC. So I would like to now pass the stage to Honorable Stockwell Day. The stage is yours, sir.
Well, great. Thank you so much. And to everybody who's been involved in this project, it's been wonderful to renew some former relationships. Nicholas, for sure, great memories in Moscow, and to others that we've been talking with over the last few days. It's wonderful to see the guidance we're getting here from Norman and from Gilles. Great to make the acquaintance again also. I think what has struck me as we've gone through and with the various working groups is the word opportunity is something that's very real. And if there's a message that we've wanted to get through, and that the participants both from the private and the public side have wanted to get through, it's the fact that the opportunity is here. The opportunity is significant to be working in a cooperative way. And I've really been zeroing in on the opportunities for the private sector. And so if we look at the first slide, and as we move it along, I'm not going to dwell on each point, but when you look at on the slide where we talk about, you just glance at the speakers themselves, and if we can move that slide down, Tatiana, we'll see, you get a sense here, I'm not going to highlight each one, but you get a sense of the cross-section of opportunity. And so as we acknowledge, and I think I saw a note that we've probably got over 60 participants right now who are looking at this, many from the private sector, and also this is being recorded so others can refer to it. We're asking people to look at the breadth of what has been covered here, look at the area in the sector that is going to be of interest to you, and you'll see we're providing real points of contact or real points of integration for whatever your particular interest is and your project is. If you look at the second slide there, you'll see in terms of innovative infrastructure development, some things that have been highlighted in media a lot and maybe in our minds have faded away a bit are still strong and active. Great opportunities that are available with the One Belt, One Road framework. When you look at the type of construction, the paving, the infrastructure that's required for this type of a project. You can see on the Canada side, for sure, there is opportunity as there is on the Kazakh side. One thing we've already heard in the previous comments, issues related to green technology are certainly continuing to emerge and coming strong to the fore. You can see we dealt with that, the high potential there. Again, we look at Canadian expertise, but the Kazakh expertise also, which may flow back to possible interest in Canada, is very real and very important. When we look at, if you move to the next slide, you can see how fast things are moving in real time, because even when we started a few months ago talking about sustainable modern cities, just with the advancement of COVID and everything that has brought to us worldwide, we see a different focus already in cities where the potential for the mass use of high-rise office development for thousands and thousands of employees in every city maybe is going to be somewhat deflected, as again, there's a focus on people working remotely. And so what is going to be the need, and who are going to be able to benefit from maybe less of a density in the cities related to office space and possibly more comfortable and affordable living spaces? This is all going to bring into areas related to cooperation when we talk about wood-based technologies, which are very significant in Canada, and some real potential there for linkages when you look at Kazakhstan, significant wood management areas that are there and that are available in terms of opportunity. And then when you look at the slide related to where the headline is opportunities, if we can just look at that, Tatiana, for a second before I move to my colleague, to Gilles, who it's been wonderful to work with. Technology transfer. I've already mentioned urban development, and the potential for private-public partnerships, very significant. It's been an eye-opener, for instance, for many on the Canadian side, as we've heard from the Kazakh side, just on the area of education, the need and the development for schools, for school buildings, and what are the possibilities there. And kind of exciting to hear about the focus on the private sector, being able to move ahead and working, whether it's a public-private partnership or private sector to private sector, and being able to see and recognize that on the Kazakhstan side, there's some real openings there, some keen interest, and some areas where people can be working together. So these are some of the key areas. As I hand over to Gilles, if I could just serve as, we move through a presentation like this, and through the whole time we hear many different things. Keep a couple of things in mind. Everything you saw here, all the names are very important. But if you forget everything else, Kazakh Invest. So they're not paying me to do an advertisement for them, but Azikcan, Kudabikov, and others, it's kind of a one-stop approach they're taking, which is quite encouraging for people on the business side. And then EDC, Export Development Canada, again, looking at credit financing. So everybody is important there. All of these areas can be listed, but if you're looking for those starting points, along with, of course, the trade commissioners and the embassies, I would highly recommend those. Thank you so much for everybody for your participation. This has been a long project, but it's gone quickly, just renewing the relationships, and we look forward to the future here. Over to you, Gilles.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to participate today in all. Thank you very much for CERBA, and it was a great pleasure and great experience. Started working with this great working group with professionals, both from Canadian side and Kazakhstan side. And thank you, Mr. Day, for all your remarks. It was a pleasure working with you and with all colleagues. And just as my colleague Mr. Day mentioned, when we prepared this job, we defined just persons who is detailly who will participate on our future actions, doing some projects in sphere of construction and in infrastructure. As Mr. As Mr. Day mentioned, we few colleagues from Kazakh Invest, they provide a great amount of information about infrastructure opportunities in Kazakhstan, and the head of division from construction committee of Ministry of Industry and Infrastructure of the Republic. He provides us information about standards and about their readiness to work together and their interest to the Canadian technologies. And the director of from Byterek of residential construction explained all information about possibilities for residential construction and in sphere of affordable housing. And as my colleague mentioned, representative from PPP Center and from Kazakh Invest, they provide all information which Kazakh Invest together with other state bodies can provide great supporting and great infrastructure for Canadian companies who can interested in this sphere. And also we are really thankful for Canadian sites who provides information. You can see 4 very interesting speakers provide very interesting information about possibilities from the Canadian side in this very interesting sector. Next slide, please, Tatiana. And as it was already mentioned, it's great opportunities in national infrastructure projects, Belt One Road, Nurlejer, and all information were provided, and we will definitely do some next step in this sphere too. Also there are great opportunities, strong opportunities for Canadian companies to the development of PPP project, especially, for example, modern healthcare and educational infrastructure using very good PPP mechanism, which already successfully implemented in Kazakhstan. There are some project which is already doing in Kazakhstan. And also high potential for the application of Canadian expertise in green technology, green infrastructure. As Mr. Day mentioned, Kazakhstan side is very interested in this rich expertise from the Canadian sides and using all this great experience in sector of construction, cities development. Otherwise, importance of definitely our Kazakhstan sites, both governmental and private sector, they already study since we all understand that importance of learning specifics of in-country business practices and regulatory frameworks to secure smooth and rapid market penetration. Next slide, please. Mm-hmm. And here in that we see that a strong interest, as it was already mentioned, to cooperate in implementation in smart cities, including energy efficient, environmentally friendly housing, encouraging reduction of carbon emissions and healthy living, incorporation of affordable housing, cooperation on transfer of wood-based building technologies for residential and commercial construction, adapting engineering approaches approaches conducive to similar construction in Kazakhstan. For Kazakhstan, as Mr. Day mentioned about system which Kazakh Invest in other governmental bodies can could provide one-stop shop system. And we're also very thankful for EDC, Export Development Corporation, for providing us very important information for both for Canadian sites and Kazakh sites about opportunities and credit financing tools available for this sector. And also Also, it's very important for a PPP sector. And keep in mind here, again, technology transfer. You can see, next slide, please, Tatiana. You can see that we defined a few main directions as technology transfer, modern urban environment and affordable living, collaboration, for example, on implementation of best practices for planning, design, construction, and management of affordable residential housing, implementation of energy efficient approaches in municipal construction and management of municipal infrastructure, ensuring cost and energy efficiency. And we already mentioned that it will be definitely infrastructure projects available with PPP Center, with great support of Kazakh Invest and other agencies. And we already talked with the committee, Kazakh Invest, we already talked with the Committee of Construction and Ministry, and they are ready for fruitful cooperation. And as we already mentioned, the next also very important direction is professional knowledge exchange, because there are great opportunities, and we'll be happy that our industry professionals to learn from the best engineering and technology practices in construction and infrastructure by organizing direct business-to-business contacts, visits to production facilities and construction sites, as well as through organization seminars and workshops. Next slide, please. And we, together with our working groups, with professionals, we are already defined like a roadmap, which we see basic steps by end of December. As you see, we are planning to identify potential partners in Canada, in Kazakhstan, for each of listed opportunities with relevant contacts responsible for cooperation. By January 15, we are planning together identify a group of Kazakhstan companies and organizations which will be interested in expanding their awareness of Canadian building technologies and participation at the Canadian expert-supported program of the Emergence of Buildings 2021. By end of February, we are planning to develop a list of national infrastructure projects in Kazakhstan of potential interest or partnerships for Canadian companies. And also, definitely, it's very important as one of the main direction, it's interregional cooperation between the province of British Columbia and Akimat of Almaty, with mutually agreed plan of activities focused on promotion, first of all, healthy urban environment and smart cities concept. And definitely, you can see that we are planning develop long-term program of professional knowledge exchange in construction and infrastructure sectors, including technologies, government support programs, financial mechanism, regional and municipal level policies. Thank you very much for your attention.
Well, yes, thank you very much to the co-chairs, Mr. Garinjan and also Mr. Stockwell. Thank you very much. I would say our working group chairmen are all, enthusiastic, but also disciplined. We still have time. We're doing well in terms of time. So there's no reason to worry. I think we're doing very well. So we may be exceeding the time a little bit, but I think we have to hear out all the comments from our working group co-chairs. The next working group on my list is agriculture and agri-tech. So should I speak to Mr. Arij Bashir is already there. Frank is also there. So which, Frank, you want to say a few words?
Yes, I'll just, again, welcome to everybody and good evening to our colleagues in Kazakhstan, and good morning. The sun is just rising on the horizon here in Alberta as I speak. It was interesting to support the work of the working group on agriculture, agri-tech. People think mostly energy, oil and gas when they think of Alberta, but it's also good to know that Alberta and Canada has a lot of technological innovations and initiatives when it comes to AgTech. It's my pleasure to have worked with the two co-chairs, Mr. Babit Urabayev, Director General of Kaz Beef Group in Kazakhstan, is not able to join us at the moment. He's busy with his cattle on the ranch outside of Almaty, so he's unable to join us. But Mr. Erij Bashir, Trade and Investment Officer with the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry, Government of Alberta, is. And again, he's done a wonderful job in putting much of the working group together. So Erij, over to you.
Very much, Frank. And first of all, I would like to also thank CERBA as well as Ambassador Brousseau and Ambassador Kamaldinov for all of your support to the agriculture sector in the past few years. We've recognized that there has been tremendous opportunity in the area of agriculture between Canada and Kazakhstan. And it's great to see that our relationship has gone beyond simple selling of livestock genetics about 10 years ago to talking about technology and use of equipment and machinery in the Kazakh sector. I'll quickly share my screen over here. Just one second. So as Frank mentioned, my co-chair from the Kazakhstan side, Mr. Babit Urabayev, was unable to join, but his company, Kaz Beef, is a highly respected group in Kazakhstan. And chances are that if you enjoyed a very good steak somewhere in Kazakhstan, it was probably from cattle that came from Kaz Beef. In terms of our speakers for the working group, we had 3 speakers from Kazakhstan that included the Ministry of Agriculture, Kazakh Invest, as well as the Kazakh AgBas Association, which is a breed association in Kazakhstan. From the Canadian side, we had the Assistant Deputy Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, Mr. Fred Gurel, join us. Fred has been instrumental in creating the bilateral relationship between the two countries in the area of agriculture, so we're very happy and pleased to have him on board. We also had companies like Brousseau, Velmetal, Feedlot Health Management Services, and GrowSafe Systems participate. All of these companies are active in Kazakhstan. Some of them have been active for more than 10 years, while others are just getting their foot into the door. So it was great to see a variety of perspectives on the future of technology and what it could be used for to kind of achieve the potential that Kazakhstan has in this agriculture sector. In terms of the discussions that we had in the working group, we started off with talking about the relationship between the two countries in the agriculture sector, how it has moved beyond simple export of goods to now talking about services. I think with Kazakhstan, especially on the livestock front, there was a lot of export of live animals about 10 years ago. But over the period of time, has been a growing recognition. There needs to be supplemental technologies as well as knowledge that needs to go along with that export. And I think it's great to see that the industry has recognized that opportunity on both ends and is taking advantage of those opportunities. There are also a lot of projects in pilot stages between the two countries, and I think that was very good to hear. We heard from the companies like Brousseau and Velmetal that have been in the market for more than 10 years. And their machinery and equipment is used in the fields of Kazakhstan, as well as in the farms of Kazakhstan, to create improved efficiencies as well as higher productivity. Then we also heard from Feedlot Health Management Services, that is a Calgary-based technology company working with Kaz Beef, probably one of the best known beef companies in Kazakhstan. It was very interesting to see how their technology based in Calgary is used to monitor the progress and the health of animals in Kazakhstan, halfway around the world, in a remote location where internet, especially in Kazakhstan, where the internet systems might not be functioning very well, but they provide 24/7, 365 days a year support to make sure that the cattle is doing well and the operation is doing well at the same time. And very recently, we also heard from GrowSafe Systems. They were actually in Kazakhstan about a month ago, and that's where I also would like to thank the Embassy of Kazakhstan again for all their help and support in making sure they get visas to be in Kazakhstan during this time of pandemic and restrictions that allowed them to install their systems at 4 different facilities across Kazakhstan, 4 different farms, and that was the project in partnership with the Kazakh AgBas Association. This project will focus on highlighting the very best genetics that Kazakhstan has to offer and allow tools and data for decision making that will allow farmers and associations to focus on really improved genetic quality. I do get very passionate when I talk about livestock and agriculture because I have been working in that area for the past 7 years, and Kazakhstan is probably one of the most active markets I've covered. Now we want to go and talk about some of the opportunities that were identified during this working group. And I would like to share those opportunities with this panel for your consideration, because there is support required from all levels of government on both sides. The first opportunity in our minds is advancing productivity in the livestock genetics sector through use of technologies. The focus could be on feed efficiencies, waste management, genetic improvements, and feedlot management. We noticed that Kazakhstan is going through a phase where they are creating and developing a lot more feedlots, and technology can really help advance the outcomes that are achieved from all of these projects. So that's one area where we found there's a lot of room for growth. Kazbeef is one example, but I'm sure there are many other feedlots in Kazakhstan that are aspiring to be like Kazbeef. There are also opportunities in the area of no-till farming for both feedlot development as well as the crop sector. Another area where we see the need for technology that will help Kazakh farmers unleash the potential that they have in the lands in Kazakhstan. We like, you know, overall the theme seems that there is definitely a need for Canadian technology. It could help Kazakhstan farmers in efficient production and marketing of their products at a global scale. As Kazakhstan looks to export beef and other products to China, to Russia, because of the proximity to those markets, Canadian experience and technology can come in really handy to create better brand value for your products. Just to give you an example, Canadian Angus Association is working with a lot of feedlots in Kazakhstan to provide that Canadian Angus ranchers endorsed certification to some of the products. So the criteria that is being used in Kazakhstan to produce the best steaks that are part of that brand is exactly the same criteria that is used in North America. So the partnership, like in that brand itself, which will allow Kazakhstan to access like, you know, higher end markets, create more value for their products, as well as, like, you know, convey to consumers the inherent great quality and care that has been taken to create that product. There's one thing that keeps coming back again and again, and that's the need for practical training for farmers. This could be achieved through Canadian agriculture colleges. There has been some movement in the past with Lakeland College signing MOUs with the ag universities in Astana or Nur Sultan and Almaty. However, I think that's where that is something for consideration, especially from Ministry of Agriculture, to see if there could be any funding programs associated with that. We found that government funding is the key for achieving automation and AgTech projects in Kazakhstan, as well as in realizing potential opportunities in collaboration with Canadian partners. And we also noticed that there is, we feel that there is a need for pilot projects that utilize Canadian technology and display what collaboration between the two countries can achieve through practical, presence in Kazakhstan. For example, I understand the universities, the ag universities in Kazakhstan are focusing on smart farms technology, a demonstration farm on the livestock side, and I believe that's those kind of pilot projects would go a long way in showing the industry in Kazakhstan the advantage of investment into technology. While we talked about funding part, we also need the private industry to see the benefit. And Kazbeef, I keep going back to that example because that is an initiative which is funded mostly by private industry from private investment, but they've seen the benefit and the rewards in using technology and making their entire operation more efficient. And so finally, just to sum things up, we feel the opportunity is great in the technology sector. We feel that Kazakhstan is, like, the partnership is already ongoing, but at a very small scale. We need to do a lot more to scale up the use of technology across Kazakhstan, and Alberta Canadian partners are more than happy to provide that input. We talked about 3 next steps for this particular working group. The first one is a potential trade mission from Kazakhstan to Canada in next summer. Hopefully, by the time vaccines will be available and travel will become easier. But what we are suggesting is a delegation based on industry as well as government, with a focus on agriculture technology. We suggest potential visits to Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario to look at what is being done and how that technology can be applied to Kazakhstan. We've had several missions come into Alberta and Saskatchewan in the past 3-4 years, and I believe the embassy the Kazakh embassy in Ottawa was also part of some of those initiatives. So we really need more of that exchange coming in. We also talked about our participation at the Kaz Agro 2020 trade show in Nur Sultan next year. I believe, it could be 2021. Sorry for the typo over there. That is a trade show that we have participated in for the past 7 years. But most of our focus has been on livestock genetics as well as equipment. I believe there is a great potential to showcase Canadian technology and Canadian AgTech companies, what they can offer to the Kazakhstan market. And we are targeting that next year as a platform to launch or to basically include more focus on AgTech. And finally, one of the things for consideration on the political leadership as well as the bureaucracy on both sides is funding for some of the pilot projects that use Canadian technology. There are quite a few projects as well as potential partners in Kazakhstan that have requested that are willing to proceed, but I feel that government support in terms of funding as well as other technology would be excellent and move this forward. With that, I would like to thank you for listening to me, and if there are any questions, we are more than happy to answer them at the end of the session.
Harish. Thank you very much, Harish, for this report. I think we're, as I said, we're doing well in terms of time, and there will be a bit of time at the end for questions. Now we're moving along to the next working group on my list, which is healthcare and education. So back to our leader, Taskyn, over to you.
Thank you, Gilles. Yes, it was a challenge for us this time to have to actually create and to have for the first time healthcare and education working group. But it was very important due to the world suffering on this pandemic. So I think there are many opportunities to further development of cooperation between two sides. And we had very interesting, with the full of information. We had about 18 speakers from both sides, and the working group consists of 2 sessions, healthcare and education. And among the speakers, we had just professionals and experts. And we were very lucky to have as a co-chairs from the Kazakhstan side, Vice Minister of Health Care of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Yerlan Kiyasov, and from the Canadian side, Margaret Skok, former ambassador to the Republic of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, and senior fellow at Carleton University. And now I would like to turn floor to Vice Minister, and probably later on Margaret would want to join and add something as well. Vice Minister, please.
Добрый день, добрый вечер, доброе утро, добрый вечер, уважаемый господин Норман Сторм, уважаемый господин Николас Бруссо, уважаемый Акylbek Капсатович, уважаемые участники 4-го заседания Делового совета Казахстан-Канада. Позвольте поприветствовать участников 4-го заседания Казахстано-Канадского делового совета и поблагодарить за активное участие в обсуждении актуальной темы для всего мирового сообщества в период и после пандемии COVID-19. 19 ноября состоялось первое заседание рабочей группы в области здравоохранения и образования в рамках работы Делового совета Казахстан-Канады. В этой связи позвольте представить вам краткий отчет о ходе заседания данной рабочей группы. В повестке дня заседания было рассмотрено 3 актуальных вопроса в области здравоохранения. Такие вопросы, как эпидемиологическая эпидемиологическая ситуация в Казахстане и принятые меры по предупреждению распространения новой коронавирусной инфекции COVID-19. В ходе заседания между сторонами состоялся обмен информацией о текущей эпидситуации, а также обмен опытом по противодействию распространению новой коронавирусной инфекции. С первых дней пандемии правительством Казахстана были направлены все усилия на выработку мер по обеспечению экономической стабильности и противодействию распространению инфекции. В настоящее время, с учетом опыта первой волны распространения COVID-19, система здравоохранения Казахстана готовится к сезонному обострению ОРВИ и возможной второй волне коронавирусной инфекции. Так, на данный момент сформирован двухмесячный запас лекарственных средств по COVID-19, так называемый неснижаемый запас. В настоящий момент из 44 наименований лекарственных средств, предназначенных для лечения COVID, уже закуплено 41 медикамент. Сформирован регулярно пополняемый месячный запас лекарственных средств во всех медицинских организациях страны. На сегодня единым дистрибьютором отгружен объем по 91 наименованию препаратов на сумму более 21 миллиарда тенге, который оперативно пополняется и возобновляется. Организовано бесплатное амбулаторное лекарственное обеспечение больных КВИ с пневмонией. Планируется охватить порядка 1 миллиона человек на сумму около 2 миллиардов тенге. Осуществлен закуп лекарственных средств для интервенции в розничную сеть. В целях предупреждения возникновения ситуации, аналогичной летнему ажиотажу среди населения республики, в связи с нехваткой лекарственных средств в розничной сети, правительство Республики Казахстан наделило единого дистрибьютора в лице СК «Фармации» функции по оптовому закупу лекарственных средств для последующей реализации в розничной сети по предельным ценам. Также проведена определенная работа по закупу масок и созданию резерва по средствам индивидуальной защиты. Кроме того, создана межведомственная комиссия под председательством премьер-министра Республики Казахстан, оперативный штаб по вопросам COVID под председательством заместителя премьер-министра. При Министерстве здравоохранения создан республиканский штаб из экспертов по эпидситуации под председательством министра здравоохранения. Реализуется национальный план мероприятий по недопущению возникновения распространения КВИ в республике. По итогам заседания достигнута договоренность о необходимости координирования действий в предупреждении распространения инфекции, а также проведения совместных мероприятий для постоянного и взаимно выгодного партнерства по вопросам в области здравоохранения, включая также и работу с COVID-19. По второму вопросу касательно государственно-частного партнерства в области здравоохранения были обсуждены и представлены для рассмотрения потенциальных партнеров несколько проектов, по которым планируется привлечение инвестиций. Казахстанской стороной был также предоставлен перечень механизмов государственного частного партнерства для реализации данных инвестпроектов. По итогам обсуждения стороны договорились поддерживать диалог по реализации совместных проектов в рамках государственного и частного партнерства в области здравоохранения. По третьему вопросу, касательно образования и науки в области здравоохранения, необходимо отметить, что это одно из важнейших направлений международного сотрудничества с целью повышения качества подготовки медицинских кадров. С 2016 года в Казахстане реализуется проект по модернизации системы медицинского и фармацевтического образования и управления человеческими ресурсами. По результатам обсуждения сторонами достигнута договоренность в обмене опытом в сфере медицинской науки, а также в использовании доказательных и инновационных решений в подготовке кадрового потенциала. Также в завершении заседания рабочей группы казахстанские и канадские эксперты посвятили обмену опытом в сфере развития международного сотрудничества в области высшего образования. Статистика президентской стипендиальной программы «Балашак» показала, что Канада остается одним из популярных направлений стипендиатов для получения высшего образования. Карлтонский университет поделился опытом в развитии интернационализации вуза, что является также приоритетным направлением развития наших высших учебных заведений. Таким образом, стороны выразили заинтересованность расширять двухстороннее сотрудничество по программам обмена студентами и поддержки научных стажировок. Итоги заседания рабочей группы показали, что наши страны, несмотря на географическую отдаленность друг от друга, очень схожи и могут обмениваться опытом во многих отраслях. Казахстанская сторона предлагает проведение заседаний по вопросам здравоохранения на ежегодном уровне. Уважаемые коллеги, надеюсь, что принятые решения в ходе заседания послужат основой для дальнейшего укрепления эффективного казахстано-канадского партнерства между нашими странами. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister. Margaret, would you like to join as well and say a couple of your comments?
I think can you hear me? Yes? Okay. So I want to, Excellencies and distinguished guests, Monsieur, Madame, et Excellence. As Ambassador Brousseau mentioned, and as the Vice Minister just mentioned, these are very difficult subjects that we did not expect to have a turnout for. And we did. And not only did we have responses, but we also had so many opportunities, both in the health sector and education. And what is important to note, which we were surprised, was the crossover to other working groups, which is critical. You know, to construction of hospitals, to practical training, to internships, to mobility, to practicums, to the invitation to Canada to locate campuses in Kazakhstan, to find out that there were 12 Canadians at Nazarbayev University, the Bolashak program, and also the Global Affairs program, Canada program for Kazakh students. They're both dynamic and supportive. The healthcare during a time when everybody was so busy with emergencies in this pandemic that they made the time and that there can be cooperation, we're very thankful. And I personally am thankful to Vice Minister Gilles for making the time and for his support. Very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Margaret. And just last maybe sentence to assure both co-chairs and the working group that this was just the beginning of the cooperation of the long road, let's say. So we will be having more events upcoming year. It's not just we're gathering once a year. So each working group will be continue this beginning. Thank you, Gilles.
Thank you very much. Oops. Thank you very much, Taskyn. I think we're ready to move. We have, I think, the other co-chair of our agricultural working group has arrived, but we can give him a chance to speak a little bit later. We'll now move to the last working group on the list, not the least, Aerospace and Transportation. So Marina, over to you and your colleague.
Oh, Gilles, this is Yana Lukashe. So I don't know if Marina is having a little bit of difficulties, but perhaps I can start. So thank you, Gilles, and to all our distinguished guests for this morning, for your time, and for this very important discussion. During this segment, it'll be my pleasure to elaborate on an important sector or sectors of transportation and airspace. On behalf of my co-chair and myself, Amanat Umbetbayet, he's the head of International Relations Department for the Aerospace Committee within the Ministry of Digital Development, Innovation, and Aerospace of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and of course myself, Yana Lukashe, I'm Manager of Government Affairs at Bombardier. So I would like to thank all the attendees that were part of this working group for sharing their insights, their exchanges, and we're encouraged by what we've heard. We see collaborations and opportunities for future synergies. This is an important sector or important sectors, and we see a lot of exciting work ahead. I will perhaps go to the next slide, Maria. Perfect, and maybe we can start. Perfect. So just very quickly, I'll go through the industry subsectors and give a bit of a perspective of the private and public sectors around transportation. So Kazakhstan continues to capitalize on its geographical position between the East and the West. Its vast territory aims to integrate into the international One Belt initiative. Further collaborations between Canada and Kazakhstan in the transportation and aviation sector could include the following developments, and these have been discussed within our working group. First, the decarbonization and reduced vulnerabilities to climate change, improve innovation and the emergence of new technologies, improve quality and connectivity of the infrastructure network, electrification and the use of clean fuels, improving capacity to address environmental, social, and safety challenges, as well as increase inclusion and equal access to transportation infrastructure and services. I will turn it over to Amanat for the next slide. We will be sharing our speaking notes for this presentation.
Thank you very much, Yana, for giving me the floor. So, good evening, dear His Excellencies, ambassadors, and colleagues and distinguished guests. Also, good morning for Canadian side. So, in the space sector, it was made some presentations from the industry subsector on general overview of space development of Kazakhstan, Earth remote sensing of Kazakhstan, and also cooperation in scientific technological direction with Kazakhstan. The Kazakhstani and Canadian space sector was represented by the following entities and businesses. So there were the representatives of Aerospace Committee of the Ministry of Digital Development, Innovation and Aerospace Industry of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Joint Stock Company, National Company Kazakhstan Garage Sapare, Joint Stock Company, National Center for Space Exploration and Technologies, also representatives of Canadian Space Agency, MDA Corporation, GHGSat, and Downsview Aerospace Innovation and Research, and Kühne plus Nagel Incorporation. So there were some opportunities and highlight of potential interest and cooperation. So in the space sector, there was, on behalf of Kazakhstan, the following fields were proposed for cooperation. First of all is the realization of signed memorandum of understanding between two agencies, aerospace agencies, which was signed in 2018. And also the enhancing the practice of sharing experience in the field of scientific space research. And the cooperation on using the possibility of newly constructed assembly and test complex of spacecraft in the city of Nur-Sultan. Also the collaboration on the MTCR issues. On behalf of Canada, the following companies demonstrated an interest to expand their operations in Kazakhstan. It's MDA Corporation, GHGSat, Downsview Aerospace Innovation and Research, Kühne plus Nagel Incorporation, and GHGSat Incorporation. The range of their products and services includes advanced surveillance and intelligence solutions, radar, geospatial imagery, space robotics, satellite antennas, and communication subsystems, logistics solutions for major industries, innovation and research in space. So I will give the floor to Jana. Jana?
Thank you very much, Amanat. For the next segment, I'll be talking specifically or reporting on specifically the industry of aerospace or aviation rather. More specifically, what the working group had discussed is areas around how to ignite the aviation cluster based on the Canadian, in Kazakhstan, but based on Canadian experiences, address issues of certification of aircrafts in Kazakhstan, look at human resource development and different various programs within aviation, as well as discuss some of the regulations applicable to unmanned vehicles, more specifically drones. So if I go into the specific opportunities that we had identified, you know, the aviation sector group had an objective to look at how we move forward within a growing industry in Kazakhstan. And we had great summaries from experts that demonstrated how much stride and how much reform has been done and is underway to bring the industry to global standards and away from the reliance of more Russian technologies, and including minor manufacturing work as well. However, there remain challenges nevertheless, but we were reassured from the representatives of the Ministry of Digital Development, Innovation and Aerospace Industries of the Republic of Kazakhstan, were represented and spoke to the current status of some of the projects that are ongoing, including ICAO, EASA, FAA Category 1 orders, and UK CAAI certification standards, operational for 2022, so right around the corner. And lead up to this important milestone, the working group managed to identify areas of possible collaboration between local stakeholders and their Canadian counterparts. And below are technical research and development opportunities, areas that were identified. Centennial College, located in Toronto, Ontario, McGill University in Montreal, and JSC Academy of Civil Aviation have all expressed interests in possible collaborations in the area of education and learning within the aviation sector as a means for future growth. Training on simulation systems, engineering, aircraft maintenance, and skills training as a means to develop a generation of aerospace workers to develop local capacity to a future industry will be key. Training and academic institutions can develop partnerships to further increase this local potential. For example, McGill University offered capacity and collaboration in management development, transitioning into aviation for management positions through joint ventures to upgrade skills within this industry. Centennial College as well, through its Canadian experiences, can partner with local institutions and elaborate and collaborate on providing aircraft maintenance training. In addition, research and development opportunities were discussed for drone technology development. Although drone regulations remain a serious challenge in Kazakhstan, there is consensus to develop a joint project on evaluating the regulations needed for future implementation in Kazakhstan. No, it was very much recognized, however, that issues of enforcement remain challenging, but the direction is quite positive. That was given from the civil aviation authorities, and as well as potential partnerships with Canadian institutions. Last but not least, there's an interest to pursue discussions in other areas, including how the aviation cluster can leverage the financial center in Astana as a means to attract competition into the country and create an innovation hub. Next slide, please. Oh, maybe I'll stay on this one then. To discuss a roadmap moving forward, further bilateral developments between Kazakhstan and Canada in the aerospace sector will take place in various forms. Matchmaking, consulting sessions, possible joint ventures, business missions to Canada and Kazakhstan, roundtables, internship programs, forums, conversations and focus group and research sessions. These are all possibilities and avenues that will allow further conversations between Canada and Kazakhstan and in the realm and in the aviation sector. Amanat, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yana. So in the space sector, in the second part, we had a detailed discussion on, as I said before, on the realization of the signed MOU and enhancing of the practice of sharing experience in the field of scientific space research, cooperation on the assembly and test complex of spacecraft in the city of Nur-Sultan, which was built this the construction was finished this year, and collaboration on the entrance of Kazakhstan to the missile technology control regime issues, which is very important right now for Kazakhstan. Also, the creation of Kazakhstan's Earth sensing satellites and high precision satellite navigation system. Also, it was very important, and it was highlighted the development of technology of reception, archiving, processing, and remote sensing data. Setup of ground space geodynamical and geophysical monitoring of Kazakhstan's Earth crust system, and also forecasting system of mineral deposits. Development of the scientific technological support of setting up the space rocket techniques and space technologies in the Republic of Kazakhstan. Creation of Kazakhstan multi-level system of space weather monitoring and forecasting. Development of scientific and experimental base of astrophysical research. Yana, floor is yours.
So last but not least, identifying some areas of collaboration within the aerospace sector. These are the following: partnership developments between Centennial College, Migley University, and JSC Academy of Civil Aviation on training for simulation systems, engineering, aircraft maintenance, and skills training. Second, the development of an aviation cluster of Kazakhstan and leverage the financial center in Astana as a means to attract competition, and the creation of an innovation hub. Third, best practices in operation and maintenance of aircrafts, and we include helicopters there as well. Technologies that would reduce costs, digitization, look at data analytics and software development. Fourth is the realm of artificial intelligence and machine learning, big data, cybersecurity, and cyber reliance in aviation. And last is regulations applicable to the use of unmanned vehicles and drones in Canada. Evaluating the regulations that are needed for the implementation in Kazakhstan and its success and growth. Thank you very much. And I know on behalf of myself and Amanat, it was a pleasure to develop conversations in this working group. And we are quite confident that these conversations will lead to value and growth opportunities for Canadians, but for Kazakhstan as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yana and Amanat, for this report. As with all the working group reports, very interesting and very, how to say, sort of conducive to follow up. We're very well on time, actually, and I have to congratulate everybody for being so disciplined. I mean, this makes the work of the moderator much easier. So now we can turn to our keynote speaker for today, Mr. Famer Engin, who is the Senior Regional Manager covering the Central Eurasia region for Export Development Canada. As they say nowadays in the United States, we are back. Well, we're very glad to see that EDC is back with us, so to speak. So, Mr. Engin, perhaps if I can pass the word over to you.
Thanks a lot, His Excellency Ambassador Brousseau, His Excellency Ambassador Kamaldinov, Chairman of CERBA, Mr. Breton, Chairman of CERBA Kazakhstan, Mr. Storm, distinguished members of KCBC. It is a great pleasure to be here today. So thank you so much for your kind invitation. Good morning, good evening to everyone. I would like to introduce EDC briefly and then talk a little about our activities in the Kazakhstan market to give you a sense to see how we can help fulfill the potential between Kazakhstan and Canada. Next slide, please. EDC is the official export credit agency of Canada. We are a Crown corporation, so we are owned by the government of Canada, but we operate on commercial principles. We are one of the largest and most capable export credit agencies in the world. We have AAA credit rating. As you know, very few financial institutions and very few countries even left with a AAA credit rating. But we are one of the few ones, so we are very proud, and we have assets that's worth about $65 billion. And we are truly a global ECA. ECA is short for Export Credit Agency. So we have offices in Canada, but we have also international representations in 21 countries, 21 cities. Some of these cities, cover offices cover specific cities, but also we have offices like Istanbul that cover regions. Next, please. As I mentioned, we are one of the largest and most capable ECAs. We are one of the oldest ECAs as well. We were established about 75 years ago. So we have a tremendous amount of know-how and experience in this sector. And if you combine all of our products, we facilitate about $100 billion worth of transactions around the world every year. So it is a very significant number. As I mentioned, we are a very special ECA globally. If you look to the breakdown in terms of geography and sector, you'll see that on the geography side, we obviously do quite a bit in the North American market, as we have the largest economy as our neighbor. But we are trying to diversify the Canadian economy and support Canadian companies in emerging markets as much as possible. So it's part of our mandate to support you in markets like Kazakhstan. In terms of the sector, it's a very good match with what I've been hearing. We talked about the potential in key areas such as infrastructure, agricultural, mining, oil and gas. These are different areas that we've been working a lot on. The top two sectors are resources and mining. By resources, we mean oil and gas for the most part. It is not surprising. Canada leads the world, I think, in these areas. Canada is one of the largest economies in the world. It's a G7 country, but it's also a very innovative economy. But specifically in these two areas, I think we are a global leader. But more and more, we see innovation or companies in the innovation space actually becoming global leaders as well. We want to support Canadian companies in areas like digital transformation. AgTech is a good example. Augmented reality, artificial intelligence, and all these innovative technologies and all these innovation taking place in Canada, also supporting some of the core sectors as well. These days we hear a lot about innovation in mining, a lot about innovation in oil and gas. So I think there's a very good overlap in terms of what we've been doing around the world and what Kazakhstan has to offer for Canadian companies. Next, please. This is a snapshot of our impact on the Canadian economy in 2019. We don't have too much time to get into the details of every single number on this slide, but I want to emphasize one specific angle, especially, and that is the composition of our client base. So we supported close to 17,000 Canadian companies in 2019, and 86% of these Canadian companies are SMEs. I want to emphasize this because when I introduced EDC, I used quite big numbers, AAA credit rating, $65 billion worth of assets, facilitation of $100 billion worth of transactions. So you can potentially, you might have assumed that we only support large Canadian companies or we only support large projects. That is not the case. We are here for Canadian companies. We are here for SMEs. Our mandate, our job is to help Canadian economy go and succeed in international markets. So we are definitely going to be supporting SMEs, and I would encourage you to also work with Canadian SMEs as well. Next, please. So these are the four pillars of our value proposition. I'm going to tailor the message a little, as we are primarily talking about Kazakhstan. So we have a quite wide spectrum of products that we can support Canadian companies with, but I want to be more focused for this specific program, on the financing side, you can think of financing primarily for Canadian companies in Canada. So we can support, I know we have Canadian companies in the audience, so we can support you in Canada by providing working capital, by providing growth capital for your export operations. So there's a lot we can help you with on the financing side in Canada. And insurance will be our main product that we'll be using to hopefully facilitate the trade between Kazakhstan and Canada. And with insurance, basically, we are taking over the non-payment risk and political risk and so on. This is important because I've been hearing a lot about from the esteemed speakers about the potential, and there's more for Canadian companies in Kazakhstan, and many Canadian companies will be coming over to Kazakhstan as a kind of a new market, and taking over some of that risk from the shoulders of the Canadian companies will definitely facilitate and hopefully help establish the potential, fulfill the potential further. And on the knowledge and connection side, we work very closely with TCS. We have a fantastic team in Kazakhstan, so I also want to encourage you to reach out to TCS and STC, the Senior Trade Commissioner and Trade Commissioner Services. That is, so I would definitely encourage you to be in touch with them. And typically we work with TCS around the world, as we are one of the largest ECAs, and we have a very strong understanding of the local markets. We try to help Canadian companies by providing connections and knowledge, and sometimes these connections could be third market connections as well. For instance, on the infrastructure side, we know that there are many Turkish EPCs in Kazakhstan, and we have good relations, for instance, with Turkish EPCs. So there are a lot of different ways we can make your life a bit easier in markets like Kazakhstan, where you're kind of exploring the market. Next, please. So we covered the Kazakhstan market out of Istanbul. So it's actually a large region that we manage. So it's primarily the Balkans, Israel, Caucasus, Central Asia. 75% of our business primarily is in Turkey, but certainly Kazakhstan is an important geography for many Canadian companies. We recognize the potential. We also recognize the risks as well in the market as a financial institution. It's part of our DNA to look to the risk. So whatever we do, obviously we will be asking for strong risk mitigants in the Kazakhstan market. So that is key. That is something that I want to emphasize to manage expectations as well on your end. But we definitely recognize the potential. Next, please. One more time. Next, please. This is a snapshot of what we did last year in 2019. So primarily, again, we are using account receivable insurance for the Kazakhstan market. It's actually the only product that we are using at the moment. But if you look to the geographic, the sector map, you see that there's obviously potential to diversify it a bit more. On the oil and gas and the extractive side, we have significant activity, but AgTech is certainly an area that we want to support more. I'm not talking about Kazakhstan, but in general, these are areas that we want to support more. Innovation, certainly we want to support more. On the infrastructure side, one of the esteemed speakers mentioned smart cities, smart infrastructure. So those are definitely areas that we want to support more. And clean tech in general, again, is an area that we want to do more. So I would encourage definitely both parties to take a look at those sectors as well. But again, just want to emphasize that we're going to be taking very closely to the risks associated with the transaction, associated with the credit, and so on. So those are my main remarks. I want to once again thank you for the invitation. It's been a great pleasure. I was in Kazakhstan last year and the year before. I couldn't come to the market this year, but definitely I look forward to being in Kazakhstan soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Engin, for your presentation. We're delighted to have you, EDC, EDC active in the Kazakhstan market. Now is the time for comments and questions. We already have one question. Taskyn, I can see you. You want to have the first question?
No, actually, we already answered to that question. So there was another question from Maria.
Yes, the question is about the relationship between Canadian Space Agency and its Kazakh counterpart, and that goes to the co-chair of the Aerospace Working Group.
Yes, it is related to the MOU. I think the one it was signed in 2018.
Yes, thank you very much for your question. Yes, thanks to CERBA, actually, during the third session of joint Canada and Kazakhstan session in Ottawa, it was signed the MOU of understanding between our countries on space issues. In general, this MOU is like a bridge between our countries, and it gives some possibility to establish new cooperations or new projects between our enterprises on aerospace industries. So the same issue was told during the second part of the joint working group session, and our enterprises were presented all their possibilities and gave a lot of new informations maybe. And we are welcome for Canadian side, Canadian company, in order to realize the points of the of this MOU. I can send a copy of this MOU to the Marina if you would like to, to study it and to resend to the Canadian side maybe. But I think the second copy has the Canadian Space Agency also. Also, I would like to say that if any question or any kind of proposals or some kind of projects which we could do jointly, please refer to our embassy in Canada, and we have already some kind of quickly contact points between our embassy, and we can immediately contact with them, and I think we can speak on it detailedly. There's no problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. I think we have one more question appearing on the Q&A, but I think it's actually a question that has been answered already with respect to the use of funding from the Kazakhstan side for what we call technical and vocational education. So I think that question has been addressed, and there will be some follow-up on that. I think thank you very much for that question. I think that it was emphasized earlier the importance of technical education for the purposes of the development of economic cooperation. So I think this question has been answered. So right now, I don't have any. Taskyn, you have anything else?
Not really. Yes, just maybe a few words on our working group. We also talked about such initiatives, so exchange programs and summer vocational courses vice in Kazakhstan and Canada. So this question, I think, referred mostly to Bolshak and to both governments, and yeah, we can discuss more offline.
We certainly. Yes, we will certainly follow it up. I think it's a very relevant observation. Now, of course, our speakers did such a good job. I think they've answered all the questions in advance. So at this point in time, I would like to offer the opportunity for any participant to offer comments if they so desire. I think we have a bit of time before I can move to the sort of closing remarks. So if anybody would like to offer comments, this is now or never, as they say. So, please.
Gilles, I would
yes,
like
Norman. Yes.
I would like to say something, and Jan Dos, if you could perhaps answer or provide your comments on this question. I know that there's funding and joint funding available through Samruk Casino, also perhaps through Kazakh Invest and through some of the other state companies who are working in the mining sector. Could you talk a little bit about what potential that would have for Canadian companies? Because one of the things that came out in our working group is a strong desire to attract Canadian junior mining companies to the sector. And for those companies who may be listening, perhaps you could just outline some of the financial support and or other support that these state companies are willing to offer.
Yes, sure. It was a very valuable piece of information, and according to the projects implemented within the recent years, we have, during our working group particularly, we had presentations from Kaz Geology and Taskyn Samruk with the existing projects ready to offer for the Canadian side. And particularly Taskyn Samruk mentioned one of the formats for cooperation with the exploration of the deposits for the junior mining companies mainly. And this year, with the assistance of Kazakh Invest, one Australian company entered the market, and I'm talking only about this particular case. They have the company has the green light for exploration, and it has been offered several regions, and upon the successful completion of exploration and when the company is successful in findings, the Taskyn Samruk is ready to enter into the joint venture with the company for each one on the parallel basis. So it is new for Kazakhstan, and I think it is very attractive for foreign companies, since both Kazakhstan is satisfied in terms of exploration of the natural reserves and several large deposits, since many deposits are provided with information from the Soviet times. And both for the foreign companies, since there is a government support and backup and the guarantee that when the exploration is successful, the government is willing to enter into joint venture and share the risks. And well, that's one of the forms, of course, for the appropriate companies and for the approved projects. But I think for the Canadian companies, it would be very attractive as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Jan Dos. Thank you very much, Jan Dos. Any further comments or questions, please?
For everyone, the next week I'm going to pay working visit to British Columbia. If somebody have some questions or some proposal, I'm ready, very welcome. I'm going to discuss. Tatiana, I need your assistance. Okay, yeah. Next week. Okay.
I'm ready. I already spoke to Shakan yesterday.
Yeah, we have to discuss how we will follow up all of our agreements, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
If our partners from Kazakhstan have some questions or proposal, please let me know. Thank you.
Absolutely, I'm working on it. I'm working on it, Mr. Ambassador.
So, yes, thank you very much, Ambassador Kamaldinov. I think this is precisely what we were looking for. I think the idea is that, of course, the purpose of this working group meeting is to create the occasions for follow-up. And I think, you know, you just jumped into it right away in the sense that we can follow up on some of the discussions we've had today. So thank you very much for that. Now, some of you will speak tomorrow at the next plenary. So maybe, unless there are further comments, I can move to my closing remarks and let you go to your other duties, and some people probably go to sleep right now in Kazakhstan. We're keeping you late, very late. So, any further comments? No? Okay.
Just let me say to the ambassador, if you are coming to British Columbia, of course we will be here to welcome, and anything we can do to assist. And you will find, I think, the climate may be slightly more favorable than what you're used to. So glad to hear that you're on your way here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yes, thank you, Mr. Day. Very kind. All right. Okay. So I will say a few words now, but of course, if anybody thinks of something else to say afterwards, please welcome to that. So of course, first of all, thank you to the chairman, co-chairman, for making the working group a success. Thank you also as well to all working group participants. I was impressed by the numbers in some of the working groups, striking numbers in some cases. Thank you as well, of course, to our regional directors who put it all together. As myself, as a long-time observer of working groups in one form or another, I'm delighted to say that I'm truly impressed with the outcome of each working group. This is how to say, not unusual, but let's put it impressive. A success, as they say, is the result of hard work, but also of adapting to new circumstances. We can observe from the point of view of CERBA that this new online format offered a more focused discussion, and one that could extend to many more participants, regardless of their location. For instance, you know, in a normal working group environment, if we had met in person, we would not have so many participants from British Columbia, for instance. And I think that's very important that we were able to do that online focus and have more people. In general, we're very appreciative, of course, of the Canadian participants offering new forms of cooperation. We also thank Kazakhstan participants for their open approach to further cooperation. This is very relevant. And I think also the working groups created overall a very valuable exchange of information for which we're very grateful. Today, my special thanks go to Norman Storm for having said all the right things about CERBA at the very outset. I think this is a very relevant. CERBA will continue to work on all these projects. And I think the ambassador just highlighted, if you want, what matters to us now is follow-up. These are unusual circumstances that will call for a more, so to say, more imaginative and more creative follow-up. So we'll be counting on your assistance to do that. Now, at this point, of course, you know, we've discussed this. What we miss is the personal interaction, what they call in French présentiel. We don't have the live presence, and at this time, I would normally be inviting you to a glass of wine, so to speak, and we would have a chat over, you know, what needs to be done afterwards, and we'd have the personal conversation. Well, let me raise a virtual glass of wine and wish you success in all your future endeavors. Now, our next step, of course, is we'll have a next part of the plenary tomorrow with our co-chairs. Same time, same place. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow to continue the discussion. So, any further word on this? If not, thank you again to all, and we will see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock Eastern Time in Canada, and later in the evening in Kazakhstan. Taskyn, you want to add anything?
Maybe just once again to thank all co-chairs for their great support and great work, and to my colleagues as well. So it was really difficult time and unusual circumstances, but we did it, and it went very successful. All the events we had productive, and just looking forward for a continuation of this start. And as you mentioned, we invite everyone tomorrow for the final conclusion of the KCBC month. So please join us tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well done to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.